Hello, my name is Rupert Hujra and I'm the Chairman and Chief Researcher of the Hurun Report. Now today I'm delighted to bring you the 25th edition of the China Rich List. It makes you wonder actually. 25 years is a long time. It's 1/3 of modern China's time. It's 60% since the open door policy. It's 80% since Deng Xiaoping famously did the Southern Tour in 1992. And I suppose the reason for persisting for so many years to do this list is because I think it really tells or helps tell the story of the modern Chinese economy. Who's up and who's down sort of gives indications as to which industries are up and which industries are down. I particularly today like to thank our partner. It's the premium baijiu brand called Hengchang Shaofang, and they've been working with us now for the 4th year in a row, and thank you very much. And if you like baijiu, I would recommend that you try this if you're not already enjoying it. And if you like baijiu, then I'd really like to suggest that you support our partner, Hengchang Shaofang. So what trends can we find from this year's Rich List? Well, overall, and let's start with the overall, we managed to find 1,240 individuals in China with personal wealth of 5 billion RMB or more. That's equivalent to about $700 million US. How does that compare with last year? Well, we're down, 5% down. And I suppose that's understandable because there's been a market economic slowdown. Stock markets are down, reflecting this as well. But what's interesting is that it's the second year on the trot that these numbers have come down. We're actually 15% less than where we were 2 years ago. So that's 250 individuals down. If you want to dig deeper, there are 500 that no longer made the cut from 2 years ago, and only 250 new faces, which actually for us is a remarkably small number. But let's just take a step back. We're actually still 40% more than where we were before the pandemic. We're 4 times the number of people from where we were 10 years ago. We're 100-something times from where we were 20 years ago. And then specifically, let's talk about, say, billionaires, because they reflect a global level of wealth creation. And 25 years ago, we had 0 billionaires that we knew of in China. And then we started adding them gradually until 2007. That was the big year. We broke through the 100 mark for the first time. And then every 4 years, the number of billionaires in China sort of doubled, all the way through to 2021, which was the peak when we found 1,185 dollar billionaires in China. And although the numbers have come down to just below just over 800, just below 900, still the number 1 market in the world for billionaires. So there are more billionaires in China today, even despite this economic slowdown, than there are that we know about in the US. And I think that's really important to be aware of. One of the things that I find so interesting about the Rich List series is that the stories of these people really do reflect some of the economic changes that are going on. So number 1 in China this year is Zhong Shanshan, and he does bottled water. Actually, he's the bottled water king of the world now. And the brand is called Nongfu Shanshan. And what's interesting to me, though, is that his wealth, despite the economic fluctuations in China these past 3 years, I mean, his wealth has been pretty much static at 70 billion US dollars. It's far and away the number 1 in China today. Number 2 and 3, they're new faces this year. And Tencent's Pony Ma, he's up 10 billion US dollars to take him to just under 40 billion US dollars. And that's mainly on the back of online games, which had a big boost this year. There's been a number of entrepreneurs with online games who've done extremely well this year. Third on the list is someone called Colin Huang from Pinduoduo. He's the cross-border e-commerce king of China. And he reflects a new trend that's going on, which is that there's a lot of entrepreneurs, especially the younger ones, and he's only 40-something, who are now going global and going global quite successfully. And Colin Huang, his wealth has grown the fastest of all the entrepreneurs on the list this year, up 60%, that's 14 billion US dollars to take him to about 40 billion US dollars. And what's been the secret behind his sort of surge of wealth? Well, it's his overseas e-commerce platform called Temu, which is one of the most downloaded apps apparently in America, but also now growing very fast in Europe. And it's taking advantage of this complete supply chain of the manufacturing and made in China. Adding on top of that sort of new sales channels, and then adding on top of that delivery, super fast delivery. So he's had a phenomenal year. Rounding out the top 5, you've got Robin Zeng of Cattle. He's the battery king of China. Actually, he's the battery king of the world. Apparently, he has 1/3 of the world's lithium battery supply, so supplying a lot of the EV makers in the world. And then number 5 is TikTok's Zhong. And TikTok, again, has just broken through 800 million users outside of China, which has been growing very, very strong. So which industries can we say have had really quite a good year this year? Well, online games, software services, and EV makers. They have to be the 3 standout industries this year. But if we look at the overall composition of the rich list, i.e. which sectors did people make their money from most of all? Well, 1/4 is the sort of the traditional made in China. It's industrial products and consumer products. And then this year, growing and always growing for the last few years is healthcare. And they're the big 3 sectors for making money on. But this year has been a tough year in general. 900 individuals from last year's rich list saw their wealth shrink. Obviously 180, bye-bye, no longer even made the cut. And of those, 50 or just under 50 were dollar billionaires last year. The industry that had the toughest time was real estate. It's been well documented that many of the real estate developers have had liquidity crises. You've had the likes of Shanshan of Evergrande, who's pretty much gone bankrupt. The fastest or the biggest decrease of the year was Wanda's Wang Jianling. He lost just under $8 billion, give or take. But the other industries that I think are worth highlighting are solar. So 4 of the fastest or the biggest decreases of the year were actually to do with solar panel makers. And I suppose that's partly because of a glut in the industry. You know, from my vantage point, I thought that solar was doing quite well. They're exporting to Europe and the rest of the world a lot. But no, there's been a glut in the market, solar and steel, and that has resulted in share prices really coming down very significantly. There's so much more to this rich list than what I can say in a few minutes. But for example, let's look at the cities that people choose to live in. So this is very significant because if you're a young entrepreneur and you want to set up a business, you want to sort of be close to some of the most successful entrepreneurs or alive today. So choosing which city to set up in is actually pretty significant. I split it into 3 + 2 + 2. So the big 3 are Beijing, Shenzhen, and Shanghai, each with about 130 entrepreneurs from our rich list and making up a total of about 30% of the total list. But what's curious to me is that actually I thought Shenzhen was going to overtake Beijing, but no, it didn't quite. It slowed faster than I expected. The first +2 is Hong Kong and Hangzhou, and the next +2 is Guangzhou and Taipei. So that sort of gives you an idea of the ecosystem. 1/4 of the rich list are women. And one thing that really stands out is that if you take a list of the top 100 most successful women in business today, the 100 richest self-made women in the world today, 60% would come from China. So this is a separate list that we put out and put out in a few days' time, really worthwhile looking into it. I mean, there's so much more depth that one can go into. Another point is that we found 100 individuals who are 40 or under, of which 39 are self-made. Far and away the most successful self-made individual from China is Singapore-based Zhang Yiming from TikTok. Another one is Shanghai-based online gamer, Cai Haoyu of Mihayo. And they've been very successful also at the international market. Anyway, there's so many fun facets to this rich list. I really hope you enjoy this 25th edition of the rich list. If you wanted to and you had the time, I'd go through all 25 and see what's changed through the rich list, which give you an indication as to what's changing in China's economy today. So finally, thank you very much to our partner, Hengchang Shaofang, the premium baijiu brand. And I hope that you, one day, if you're not already on the list, maybe through a story like today, will find some inspiration, build a business, and who knows, tomorrow you may well make the list too. Thank you very much.